Hello everyone, welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout on the Euro preview, and today it's the big one. It's Group D, it's England's group. I'm joined by Andy North. How are you?
Yeah, very good, mate. Thank you very much for having me again.
No worries, you did so well on your debut. I thought, why not give him another chance to ruin it?
Yeah, exactly. That's more like it.
Yeah,
And what better way than to talk about Scotland for a bit as well?
absolutely. We've already been told on Twitter to go easy on Scotland.
Yeah,
I mean, a good performance last night against the Netherlands. I don't think anyone really expected them to get any joy out of that game, and a credible draw, and unlucky not to win it, really.
yeah, they didn't play too badly, actually. I think it said a little bit more about Netherlands and how they're experimenting with these formations. And it has made me think a little bit about the Netherlands defence. But yeah, no, they did okay. And like I said, I actually feel bad now after Wales last time and saying how they weren't going to do very well. I feel a little bit bad that I might say the same about Scotland today, but we'll see.
So we need to put down England, and we need to big up Scotland this time.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
we've had two messages in the chat, two out of two messages, both just saying football's coming home.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is. It is.
I think it's safe to say that expectation is quite high, especially after our massive 1-0 win against Austria last night.
Yeah.
Whew. Anyway,
Yeah.
right. So we're going to be talking about Group D. So Group D is an interesting group. I don't want to be too biased, but to me, it's one of the more one-sided groups. I think, along with Belgium's group in Group B, it's a group where I can't see too many surprises happening. I'm happy to be surprised, but on paper it looks sort of fairly routine, especially for England to win this group quite comfortably. So we've got Croatia, the Czech Republic, England and Scotland. Do you agree with that, Andy? Do you think England comfortable winners here, and who gets second place?
I think so, yeah. I think it's going to be most probably England finishing top, and then it's between Croatia and Czech Republic, I think, for second place. I think I was reading something the other day, actually. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what England do if they start well, because we are in a much better position if we finish second in this group because of the way the tournament tree is
Which was
going.
similar
So,
to the World Cup, right?
yeah, that's exactly it. And actually, there's been a lot of chatter recently about the fact that did Gareth Southgate do that on purpose and put out a weakened team against Belgium because he wanted us to finish second? And I'm wondering whether whether that's something that could happen. You never know. I reckon we could rest a few players if we win the first two games. Yeah, we'll see. I think if everything went as it should do, I think England should finish top, and then it's between Croatia and Czech Republic for second place, and then Scotland in last.
Oh, yeah, you said it now.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, our toughest game in this group is Croatia, so that's the first match.
Yeah.
That's the one. It's the Croatia and England feels like such a grudge match now. The Steve McLaren umbrella saga, and then Theo Walcott's hat trick in the game after that, and then obviously they knocked us out of the World Cup in a game that we really should have won. I still firmly believe that we were big favourites for that match, and
Yeah.
I'm a little bit embarrassed that we lost to that team. I think we should have. We really should have gone all the way, at least to the final. I mean, we would have lost to France anyway, but I really think we should have got there. But Croatia are interesting. I mean, they had a fairly old squad in that side. What do you think about them going into this tournament? Do you think they're a better side than they were in the World Cup?
Well, literally, I was just about to say that. I don't think they are. I think they're a different team. I think they have some good players. Don't get me wrong, and they have some really exciting players, especially attacking wise. There are some players that I do quite like, and there are some still of those older players that are still in there that are going to give them that experience and make sure that they don't completely combust in this tournament. Modric is still there, Perisic is still there. You've got Vida and Vrsaljko as well, who have been there for a long time. And I look at that first game against England. I think they're going to frustrate us. I think it's going to be like last night against Austria. I think it's going to be, if we can get a 1-0 win, leave that match and don't think about it ever again, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because they haven't got Mandzukic or Rakitic, have they? They've retired. So Modric is still. I mean, Modric must be getting 35 or something. Must be.
34, 35, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously still a great player, but I mean, we'll look at their squad in a bit more detail in a minute. There's no players there that really concern me as an England fan. I agree with you. I think there's players that can hurt. Of course they can. They've qualified. They're a good team, but they're not a team that we should be fearing, I don't think. And as they're the other strongest team in the group, I think England should be okay. So let's have a look at some qualifying stats.
Yep.
So look at Croatia first. So Croatia played 8, they won 5, they drew 2, they lost 1. Decent record. They scored 17 goals, they conceded 7, 2 clean sheets. Pretty good, right? Like it's not some of the best stats that I've seen doing these videos, but it's certainly not bad. Any more thoughts about Croatia?
Yeah, I think I kind of lump them along with teams like Ukraine, and that where they're going to be those teams that frustrate people. And I think Croatia, like you've seen, it's only 17 goals. It's 20 less than England did in qualifying, but just as many goals conceded. We conceded 6, they conceded 7. I think they are just going to be a team that frustrate people, and they're not going to go out for the jugular. They're going to counter attack. They've got the players to be able to do it as well. So I'm not expecting that first game to be free flowing, and we beat them 3-4-0. So when we come on to England a bit later, I mean, it's kind of makes you think about whether you need to target England in that first game, really.
So is this making you? Because I mean, Harry Kane, for example, and England players are massively backed in this fantasy game. They always. I mean, Harry Kane, we'll see, is like over 40% ownership, one of the highest owned players in the game. Do you not think maybe there's a case of not starting with him or not starting with any England players because of this first match? And then you've probably got the limitless chip in 2, and then maybe you could bring 1 or 2 in for 3. Do you think Kane is as important in that Croatia game as we think, maybe?
No, I don't think he is. I don't think it's the easiest fixture at all, especially when you've got people like Ronaldo playing against Hungary, when you've got Lukaku playing against Ukraine. I think there's genuinely better options than Harry Kane at the moment, especially for his value as well. The only problem is if we do start the competition really well and Harry Kane does well, you're already playing catch up 40% of the game. And if we're being honest, he's probably going to be captained by a lot of those as well. So if he does score a brace, you're already 24, 25, 26 points down. So, personally, I'm not going for him. I think he's too much money for a fixture that I'm worried about anyway. But, I can understand why people are doing it.
That's interesting because, I mean, I hadn't really thought about not having him. He's in kind of every draft that I'd had. And then I completely agree with you. The more I start looking at Croatia, the more I don't think this is a team that's going to sort of tear trees up and go really far into the tournament, do really well, but they're going to be annoying. They're going to be an annoying team to play against. And given how the chips fall, it's only really 1 week that you've kind of got to maybe have a plan to get Kane in. Like you say, in that game week 3, that could be a game where we rest some players. I still think Kane will play, but if we're playing a bit of a weakened squad, is he likely to hit massive hauls? So I've gone from thinking sort of Kane's an absolute shoo-in for the Golden Boot to thinking, not too sure. I mean, I think it's going to be that Czech Republic game that's quite key. So what do you make of them? So the Czech Republic played 8, won 5, no draws, 3 losses, 13 goals for, 11 goals against, 2 clean sheets. I mean, they've got Souček, obviously, and Soufal. Other than that, not really too sure. What do you reckon? How do you think they're going to get on?
Yeah, I think, do you know what? I was having this, I was about to say having this conversation with someone else, but I wasn't. I was having this conversation in my own head.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And do you know, I was looking at Soufal and Souček, and I think, yes, they're great players and they've had incredible seasons for West Ham, but I almost hate the idea of picking players because they're in the Premier League. And, I just feel like a lot of people out there will be picking them because they're in the Premier League, because they've done well. And I'm just thinking, actually, are there better players to pick from in the Czech Republic? I don't mind the Czech Republic as a team. I do think if they finish second in this group, they've done really well. If they finish above Croatia, I think that's a really good result for them. But I do look at this group and think, where are they going to be getting the results from? They can maybe do well against Scotland, but we saw from Scotland last night, they've got the fight in them anyway. And then against Croatia, that's going to be a real grudge match, isn't it, when they play up against them? So I think they do have some good players, and we'll talk about their players a bit more later, I know. But I think there are some good players in this team. Like I said, Soufal and Souček, I think, are the ones you need to probably target. But is Souček going to be used the same way as he is for West Ham?
Well, that's it, isn't it? And the same with Soufal as well. I mean, he's used as a wing-back in most of their games. So is he going to have that real freedom to push up as high as he does? I mean, you look at West Ham, they played so attacking in so many games, so many attacking players bombing forward. The Czech Republic are going to have to defend deeper, I would have thought. Yeah. Okay, England next. So we played 8, we won 7, we lost 1. We scored 37 goals, which was the highest for any team in the qualifiers. Only conceded 6. 5 clean sheets. I mean, you look at that record and you think, we're being tipped as one of the favourites to win it. We always are. We always find a way to disappoint. I mean, the record's very, very good. I think the squad we've got is unbelievable as well. Yeah. How far do you think we'll go?
Oh, it's coming home, mate. It's coming home. There's no doubt now. Do you know what? If there's one thing that England always do well, we always qualify really well. I say always, obviously the Steve McLaren time not so much, but we do qualify well. We do beat the minnows very well as well. And I think the one thing that I will say, and a lot of people are doing it on Twitter as well, is they're looking at qualifying stats to try and help them with the tournaments, but it's just so different. Like England are the key team where we qualify so well, but then in tournaments we always look so shackled, don't we? And we don't seem to ever get out of second gear. So it's always tough to call it. And I think in this group, it's going to be interesting to see how England go. I think they'll finish top, but I don't think it's going to be 2-3-0 wins all the time. We could scrape through with just scoring 3 goals.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially with the way Croatia, Czech Republic and Scotland could go up against us. I think Scotland's probably going to be the most wide open game. Whereas Czech Republic and Croatia, I think, knowing that they can get through with draws, I think that's probably what they're going to aim for.
Yep. So Scotland, stats-wise, they played 10. So they played the most of the teams. I still find it weird that different teams play different amounts of qualifying games. It seems really bizarre. The format as well, with all the with more teams and third place getting through and stuff. It's all a bit strange. But anyway, they played 10. They won 5, lost 5. So real mixed bag. They scored 16. They conceded 19, which was the most across the team. So you've got a group here with the most goals scored for a team and the least goals. So if you put any stock at all in these stats, you've got to think that England-Scotland game there's going to be goals in that. So that's when you need your Harry Kane. That's when maybe we can see if Foden or Grealish or Sancho, these guys that are starting, and they're the ones to kind of try and tap into. I put a little star next to their clean sheets. They kept 2 clean sheets in qualifying. Both of those clean sheets were against San Marino, which no disrespect to San Marino, but you would expect. So that's 8 games where they concede at least 1 goal. So they are, even last night they get a good result against the Netherlands, but it's not through defensive grit and stubbornness. It's they concede chances, and Robertson is a very highly owned player going into this game. I'm not convinced on any of the Scotland defensive assets, certainly, and not Robertson, to be honest.
Yeah, it's tough actually, because they're probably their 2 best players, arguably their 2 best players, are both left backs. So you've got Tierney and Robertson. Tierney's going to be part of the back 3, the left side of the back 3, and Robertson's going to be bombing on forward from there. But like you said, are they going to be keeping any clean sheets? It doesn't look like it based on stats beforehand, and you're basically relying on Robertson and Tierney to get you some kind of attacking returns. And can you guarantee that against these? I'm not so sure. Robertson obviously got an assist last night, didn't he? But yeah, I think it's hard picking these Scotland players because you're not really sure what they're going to be able to do in this group.
Yep, no, I completely agree. All right, let's go through the teams one by one then. So on the screen now is the UEFA Euro Fantasy squad list for Croatia. We'll start there. So really, really low ownership players. So people really aren't backing Croatia at all in this game. Rebic is the most owned. So I was a little bit surprised by this, given that he's a 7 million forward, 4% ownership. Given how precious those forward spots are, how many options there are, I thought that was actually quite high. I mean, some of the other forwards I know, who's it, the Ukrainian forward, for example, he's 0% owned and he's around the same price. I think maybe even a better option than Rebic. I can't remember his name. What's the Ukrainian? I've literally just been doing an article on him today.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Oh my god, how embarrassing. Yamoshuk, something like that.
Don't worry.
Yeah, okay, it's fine. And then we've got Modric next, 3%. I mean, 3% owned. I mean, they're nasty prices. I think these Croatian players, 8.5 mil for Modric, 3% owned. He's not someone who I'd be looking at. I mean, Eriksen's around that price.
Yeah.
What do you think about Modric? Do you think Modric can really dictate things like we've seen before? Can he really be that player in this tournament again for them?
It completely depends where they decide to play him. So if he plays in that number 10 role, like he's done before, and they play Kovacic just behind him, there's every chance that he could do well. So it all depends on what formation they play. They do play a formation sometimes where they got Brozovic, Kovacic, and then Modric in front. If that's the case, then 8.5 million could be an absolute snip for him, because we know what he can do. We know he could. I think in the last World Cup he did really well as well, and I think he's worth looking at then. But if they don't do that and they have Luka Modric kind of playing back and playing with Brozovic kind of as a two defensive midfielders, I think then someone like Pasalic might be somebody to look at instead of. And I think Pasalic is 7.5 million, but he's 0% owned in this game. So it really does. It's really all about what you think they're going to do formation wise. I love Luka Modric. I think you're paying for somebody that is nailed, and you're paying for somebody that could get forward. And obviously that could change mid-game as well. They could be looking at it and thinking, somebody's not doing very well, let's get Modric a bit further up. And then you can start thinking about getting returns for him. I think, though, for 8.5 million, like you just said, Christian Eriksen, 7 million, I like him a lot more, I think.
Yeah.
I know, was he? I can't remember now, actually.
I think he's more. I think he's 9, isn't he? On this, he's cheap on fan team.
Sorry, I keep getting confused.
Yeah, I know, it's difficult. The fan team and UEFA pricing is so different. But I just can't. I mean, I remember Luka Modric when he played for Spurs in the Premier League, and fantasy wise, he wasn't really an option. He strikes me again as one of these players a bit. He's a bit like he could easily win Player of the Tournament, and has done. Before at one of these international events, but fantasy-wise, I can't see any way in which Luka Modric really factors into the fantasy reckoning at 8.5, playing in midfield for what we think is going to be a frustrating to watch Croatia team in a group where they're, going to be battling out for second place. I would have thought so. Yeah, he's not for me. Is there anyone else in this list? I mean, we're talking about Croatia from a kind of defensive point of view. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any defenders here that you'd be looking at?
Yeah, there is. I think I quite like Vasalko. I think he is 5 million, so it's always tough. I've tried to focus more on those 4.5 million defenders for these nice teams that I think might keep clean sheets. But I don't think he's that bad a player at all. I think Vida and is it Kaletakar? They're both going to be nailed. But again, they're 5 million. It's hard to justify 5 million. I think Brazovic is the left back. Barisic is the left back. He's also a good player. He is 4.5 million. So I think out of all the defenders, he's the one I'd go for. He does have a good cross on him as well. Vasalko, I think, is the one that will probably he will be the outball more than Barisic. But I do like Barisic. I think he's a good player. So that's probably where I go if I was going to pick a defender from this team. Livakovic as well in goal. Again, they're all 5 million apart from Barisic. So I think for 0.5 million less, I think that's probably where I would go personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they've been priced, I think, because of the World Cup run they had, because of the expectations are higher. But I'm struggling to see them in that kind of bracket with these prices. I just think our money can be spent in better ways. Basically, the only one I think is if Barisic is going to start for 4.5, then he might be someone just to get in. Particularly, maybe not so much in the first week, but when he plays Scotland and the Czech Republic. Yeah,
no, I do agree, and actually, I completely agree with what you said there. I think Modric and Perisic as well. They both got pedigree and both know how to perform in games, but for 8.5 million is a lot. Somebody that might be worth having a look at, like I said, is Palisic if you can. Pasalic, God, I keep getting around the wrong way. Pasalic, if you
it's
can.
It's 10 a.m, mate. Don't worry. We're both struggling this morning.
But also Vlasic. Vlasic will play on the other wing compared to Perisic, and he's only 6.5. So there are some bargains to be had in this. But like you said, I think the upside isn't really there for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Right. We've destroyed Croatia's prospects.
We're so negative. I
know.
Who's next?
So the next team for us to crush is the Czech Republic.
Great team.
Yeah, so they've got 3 options here that people are considering kind of the most. They've got Souček, obviously, 6.5 million mid, 11% ownership. Holes, 4.5 million mid. I assume he's being picked mostly because people are looking for a 4.5 million midfielder. obviously we see that quite a lot, which is fair enough. 11% owned, and then Soufal at 9% with 5% ownership. Then it just drops off massively. 1%. Okay, all of that. So we mentioned Souček and Soufal a little bit before. Souček, I mean, it's that first game, right? They've got Scotland in the first game.
Yeah.
6.5 is a lot of money. I still wonder if he's going to be able to. Is he? First of all, do you think he's the chief threat for the Czech Republic?
From set pieces, 100%. Yeah, I think he will still be used the same way as for West Ham in terms of attacking set pieces. You know, all the set pieces will be aimed at him. I just worry that he dropped off a lot at the end for West Ham. And I think that might carry on into this tournament as well. And I don't see him as much of a goal threat in open play. So I worry that for 6.5 million, whether he's going to be worth it. But 11% own, that's nothing to be sniffed at, is it?
Yeah, that's the worry for me, is that I don't know too much about the system that the Czech Republic play. I know he's a threat from set plays. I know he's got that amazing ability to read the game, get into his positional sense is fantastic. The duels he wins, he's one of the worst players to come up against kind of in the air. I don't know. I'm not sure what the quality of the Czech Republic's delivery is. I mean, again, it's strange to be kind of saying how great West Ham are, but you know they have got players in that team who can really, you know, ping the ball over. Creswell, for example, exactly. So the Czech Republic aren't renowned for having kind of real set piece deliverers and specialists from swinging those balls in. So I wonder if that's going to affect him. I do also think he's going to have to operate in a more defensive way.
I think so.
Because they can't play the kind of West Ham attacking free flowing football. That's a very weird sentence to say, but it is kind of right. And I think, you know, we saw that with you mentioned his form dropping off when Lingard came into the team. I think there was a bit more pressure. The pressure was off kind of Souček to really be the one kind of making those runs and make things happen, because they gave the ball to Lingard. He'd run down the pitch, do something, create a bit of magic. So I think 6.5 is too much for him. I think Soufal as well. I think he's going to be playing in a different system, a different way. We're not sure what that is. 5 million is a fairly good price for him, and I think, you know, given that he has got that first game against Scotland, I think, you know, he's not a bad pick, but I still think there's better options. You know, at 4.5, when you've got the likes of like Denayer at Belgium and Pau Torres and these guys, 5 million for a Czech Republic defender just seems a bit much to me. What are your thoughts?
See, I like it. I like Soufal.
Okay.
Yeah, good, I do. I think for 5 million against Scotland, I think it does depend what you're playing in terms of tactics. So for me, I'm just worried about that first week, and I quite fancy Soufal to be either on my bench or starting against Scotland. I think he could get some joy. I do actually. I think I completely agree with you about Souček. I think he's been an avoid in my team because of how much he is and how much I really think he's going to do. But I think there's two people here for 0%. They are a little bit of money, but 0%. Schick, who will play up front. He's not shit. He's Schick. He is quite good for 8 million. And Derrida as well. Derrida's their little playmaker that will play behind the striker, and I quite like him at 7.5 million. It's just, again, how much upside are you really going to be getting from these teams in terms of how many goals do you think they'll score? But those are two players there I think could do quite well.
Yeah, I think it works if you've got a kind of an exit route for them. You know, so you have them in for the first match week. They play Scotland. You use your limitless ship in 2, and then you've got a way of moving them or a plan to move them. And actually, the prices they are, I worry more if the prices are really low, because it makes you think, you know, I've got less kind of people to go to. But when you're actually around 7, 8 million, 6.5, there are plenty of picks to move to. So yeah, I'm quite on board with that idea. I think Scotland are definitely a team to target. It's just a little bit tough to know which players to target against them. But I think given that these guys are like 0% owned, like across the board, there's definitely worse ways to go. Yeah,
and potentially actually it's worth mentioning, I guess, that Scotland might not be the best team to target for clean sheets. They might be the best team to target in an attacking sense, you know, attacking their defence. But I think they know they're not going to be keeping many clean sheets. I agree. So they're going to have to go out and attack. And I think if you're maybe setting up with, I've already mentioned Soufal, but actually, is it more than likely he's not going to keep a clean sheet because Scotland are going to have to be fighting from the first minute, really?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think. And I think the Netherlands game last night, I know it's hard to know because different systems, experimentation and stuff. I think it just gives a sense of if they're going to get points and if they're going to get wins and if they're going to try and get second place, they're going to do it in a way which is attack.
Yeah.
They just don't have the personnel to sit back and defend. And a lot of the teams that we think, that might have quite good tournaments might be able to do that better, like Turkey, Switzerland, Austria, Croatia. These guys kind of know, okay, our strength is in defence. Scotland's is not at all. So makes attackers playing them more attractive, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, let's talk about the big one then. So
Scotland.
Yeah, we've got Scotland next. No, we've got England next. Harry Kane, 44% ownership. Mason Mount, 32%. And then, just loads of players above 10%. So Luke Shaw, 18%. Foden, 14%. Trent, with an injury, potentially now, 12%. John Stones, 11%. Harry Maguire, 10%. This is the team where people are really, really heavily investing in. My first question to you is, do you have any of these players in your team? You mentioned you haven't got Harry Kane. Have you got any of the others? 2, which ones would you consider and how do you think we're going to set up?
I don't have any of these players in my team.
No England players at all?
I think, I don't have any England players. I found they were quite overpriced personally. I think compared to when I'm looking at some of the other players and some of the other groups that I think are quite easy, I'm looking at the England team and thinking, and I'm looking at the England group and thinking there's so many question marks next to every player. And because of that, I'm finding it really hard to pick them. Like, yes, Harry Kane is 100% going to start. Is he going to start in that last game? Not sure. Mason Mount, I think, is pretty much nailed, but how far forward is he going to get? Luke Shaw's got Chilwell's competition. Phil Foden, will he start? Gareth Southgate, is he really going to go for it? Trent's now obviously injured. John Stones and Harry Maguire, I'm pretty sure are going to be there anyway, and Carl Walker, to be fair. But then the rest, you're just looking at it and thinking, I'm not really sure whether they're 100% going to be playing, so it's really tough. But I'm not starting with any of them.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I'd love for us to spend sort of half an hour dissecting England and the squad, but I don't even really know what system we're going to play. It could be that we play 3 at the back and wing backs like Southgate seems to prefer to do. I think that would be completely the wrong system given the personnel we've got. I don't know if Southgate. I look at like Grealish last night was just fantastic. The way the bravery and the kind of arrogance that he's got to carry the ball and make things happen. Do I think he's going to definitely play in that first group game? No, I think he probably won't. I can see us lining up with Rashford or Sterling on the left and Sancho on the right and Kane up front and Phil Foden and Grealish both on the bench. And I think Grealish or Foden, if they're given the opportunity, could both be player of the tournament. Yeah. If they were trusted. But I'm just not convinced they will be.
Yeah, I completely agree. Personally, I think it'll be Kane, Sterling and Foden top 3. But it depends. If we talk about it from a non-FPL point of view, then it's brilliant because you've got so many options that you can bring on that can affect a game. And when you think you can bring Rashford on, you can bring Sancho on, they're genuine game changers, aren't they? So it's lovely like that. But in terms of fantasy, it's so hard to pick these players that you think are definitely going to start. And I'm not even sure whether Gareth Southgate knows in his head who's going to start yet either. So if it's hard for us, if it's hard for him, it's 100% harder for us. So it is really tough. I think depending on the way you're playing this game, if you're playing it as 3 different free hits, if you're using your limitless chip and your wildcard in game week 3, then I don't think it matters too much. But if you're trying to do it to hold on to chips for as long as possible, you just need to select those nailed players. And Harry Kane and Mason Mount are probably the most nailed out of all those players, aren't they?
Yeah, well, for sure. I can't see any way in which Mount doesn't start. 32% ownership is high. I'm just thinking about Mount and just thinking what is kind of the best case scenario that you're going to get from him. He's had obviously a fantastic season for Chelsea. I think the chance I read a stat which was something like the chances he's created was just under 100, which was like a couple of less than Messi in both the Champions League and the league. So obviously creates lots of chances. Chelsea have lacked that real kind of clinical striker up front. So if he can create chances, obviously now we've got Harry Kane and Sancho up front. You've got to think that he could register some assists, but he just never strikes me as like a a big point scorer in these fantasy games. He's a reliable, ticking over a season type player. But in a tournament like this, when I want big returns quickly because there's kind of a lot fewer weeks, I just wonder if Mount is the player to go for.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think because of his price, I think 7 million is actually quite a nice price for him. Yeah. I think you've got other players that we're looking at that are more than 7 million that we're probably having the same kind of conversations about, and it's just about whether England can really hit the ground running in this group. If there's one thing we're known for, it's not for hitting the ground running. It's not for taking teams by storm. I think even in the World Cup, it was Panama we played against that we scored all those goals. So all of a sudden there's not really a Panama in this group, and I just think it's tough to know exactly how we're going to play, because with England you just never bloody know, do you? No. So it's really tough. So yeah, I think Mount is a good price, and I think for at 32%, I can see why he's picked in so many teams. But it just goes to show that England are going to be so heavily backed in this game that, for me, I think you either go whole hog with England or you don't pick any.
Yeah. I mean, the only player I've got Kane at the moment, but I think I'm probably not going to start with him. I think I'm going to end up with Lewandowski, because he's got that first match against Slovakia. Oof. And then I'd limitless Kane back in, and then probably make the switch up. But I'm thinking, because I'm with you. I don't think that Croatia game is really the match to target for England. I have got John Stones though.
Yeah.
5.5 defender. He's kind of the only one that I think is definitely going to start in the whole backline. I mean, it's probably going to be Pickford, I would have thought. I don't think the other goalkeepers have done enough to displace him there. I don't know who's going to be at right back. I don't know who's going to be at left back. Harry Maguire, they're trying desperately to get him fit, but there's still a bit of a question mark around that. So Stones for me is the one there. I think 5.5 for an England defender in that group is fairly decent. So yeah, I'm going for him.
Yeah, don't mind that pick at all. I think 5.5 million as well. He's shown this year that he knows where the back of the net is as well. So if he can get one of those famous braces, then we'll be more than happy. Right,
Scotland. So we've already had some abuse in the chat saying we don't know anything about Scotland. Mark Clement, thanks for that. Francis Logan says, under Steve Clarke, Scotland don't attack, they counter-attack. So, I mean, they're going to have to do a lot of counter-attacking, I think, in this tournament to progress. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, if you're dropping deep and withstanding pressure, then you're pushing up as soon as you get an opportunity. That is... Yeah, it's a way to play that's effective. I mean, Leicester pretty much won the league doing that method. So I don't think Scotland have quite got the personnel to match that, but it is an effective tactic against teams that England and Croatia, for example, you'd expect to see have them a lot of the ball against Scotland. Yeah. So come on, let's disprove this notion we don't know anything about Scotland. What do you make of them? What do you make of this squad? Who do you like?
I think it is worth mentioning about they've got this COVID scare at the moment, haven't they? So they've got a lot of people self-isolating, which is not great. I think it's John Fleck that got tested positive.
Yep. So just what you need going into
exactly. That's really not what you need. The one thing you can always say about Scotland is they do have that fighting spirit. They know how to get together, and they know how to band together as well. And they did that against Holland last night. I think, in terms of who I'm looking at as to who I like, Andy Robertson is 16% owned for a reason, 5.5 million. I think they're not going to be keeping many clean sheets, but he can get that attack and return. Yep. He is a player that will get forward. He's actually finished the season really well for Liverpool. Kieran Tierney, I think, he will be playing that left centre-back role with those three at the back, and I think that kind of limits him a bit. He does have licence to bomb forward, but I think Robertson's the one you want to go for. I think for 0.5 million, I think he is a better option. McTominay, it's a shame he doesn't play in midfield as much as he should do. He tends to actually be in the back three, so it'd be interesting to see whether he does play in midfield. I think the person I would probably be going for is John McGinn. I think 7.5 million, yes, it seems like a lot of money, but he's only 1% owned, and he is that player, I think, that could, he's that box-to-box player that could get in the box and actually cause some damage. And Czech Republic, if we're thinking they might get through this group, which you never know, in European football and in tournament football, you never know what's going to happen. They could score against Czech Republic, they could score against Croatia, they could even score against England. And I think John McGinn will probably be heavily involved with whatever goals they score.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, he loves the yellow card. He was the most booked player in the Premier League, John McGinn. There's a stat for you. Yeah, I mean, I look at this group and I'm despite the kind of the record that Scotland had in the qualifying, conceding all those goals, I don't look at them in this group and think they're a dead cert to finish bottom of the group and they've got no chance. I think the third place teams going through, a lot of those going through will boost them, because I think they could finish third in this group. I think they could finish. I mean, you look at this squad list and their squad isn't bad, right? I mean, Kieran Tierney has had a good season at Arsenal. Obviously, the injuries have been a problem, but he'll be playing at centre back again with Robertson, Tars on the left. And I'd rather see Tierney play on the left, but what can you do? You're not going to displace kind of one of the best left backs in the world for him. So 8% ownership for Tierney, I think, is way too high, because you're just not going to get that attacking threat from him. There's definitely better options there. But in terms of Scotland's potential, he's a good pick. I mean, Scott McTominay, John McGinn, Che Adams, Marshall, Christie. These are good players that work hard and can do a job. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Scotland be one of the dark horses in this tournament and do quite well. I just think from a fantasy perspective, you've got to be looking at teams to target in terms of getting attacking returns.
Yeah.
And I just cannot see Scotland keeping teams out in this tournament. So when a team is playing Scotland, they're gonna be seriously considered for the captaincy for me.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to be too harsh to them, but I think targeting Scotland has got to be a viable tactic.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think defensively is where they're weakest, I think. And they're playing Grant Hanley at centre back most probably. And you think, if you're playing Grant Hanley at centre back, he's the walking yellow card, red card, own goal. He's everything that could be wrong with him is. So I think yes, I would be targeting this fixture in terms of captaincy if you've got good players to captain against them. But yeah, I don't think I'd ever say that they're dark horses for the tournament, but I think they could do quite well in this group.
No, obviously not to win it. Dark horse in terms of they could go further than I think people are expecting them to.
Yeah.
to go. Let's just put that disclaimer in.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So it just God, we're talking for 40 minutes. It's flown by. Just picked out a few players. So a player from each side. So I've gone for Rebic for Croatia. 27 appearances in Serie A, 11 goals, 7 assists, 4 bookings. It's a good return. I mean, he played in the Europa League as well, but didn't manage to get any goals in that. He's the most popular player, but I'm guessing not someone that you're looking at.
No, I'm not even sure he's going to start, to be perfectly honest. I think it could be Kramaric starting up top instead. So I think that's quite a risk, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I went for him because he's the highest owned player. So people are interested in him, and I was quite surprised to see his ownership kind of, like I said, reaching those heights when he's classified as a forward. And there's so many other spots, but yeah, it might be one to watch. So obviously had to be Mr. Potato Salad himself for the Czech Republic. Double-digit goals for West Ham this year, in 38 appearances, 10 goals, 1 assist, 7 bookings. So does like a booking on occasion. I think there's going to be a lot of Czech Republic hopes pinned on him, but like we said, not too sure he's someone that I want for my team.
Yeah, I think for his price, I think my picks for Czech Republic will probably be either Soufal or Derrida, personally. I think I like Derrida because he'd be playing attacking midfield, whereas Souček is going to be in that double defensive pivot. So I think I'd probably go for him. Yep.
Janiger77 says, in FPL, you'd never pick McGinn over Grealish when they're the same price. That's what I love about these international tournaments. I mean, it's like Grealish is like, no, we can't go there. Not certain to start. John McGinn, though, absolutely. Yeah, I love it. So for England, I've gone for Kane. I mean, 35 appearances, 23 goals, 14 assists, 1 booking. I mean, everyone knows what he's like. 5 appearances in the Europa League, 3 goals, 2 assists. I mean, he just scores goals, doesn't he? And he's added he got the most assists in the league as well last season. So he's really has become kind of the complete striker. Surely no way that he stays at Spurs next season, right?
Yeah. Are we going to talk about this now, are we?
We're going to talk about this now. What do you think?
I've said it at the very beginning. I don't think he's going to leave Spurs.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can afford it. I think he's going to cost 150 million. I can't see anybody being able to stump up that amount of money. I don't think he's holding any cards. He's signed a new contract not that long ago. I think is he still got 2 or 3 years left on it, and I don't think Levy's the kind of person that would say, "Oh, that's fine, Harry, we'll sell you." So I think he's going to stay at Spurs. I think the only team that could pay maybe afford him is PSG. And is he really going to want to go to the French league and play for PSG? I don't see it. So I would not be that shocked if he stayed.
Interesting, yeah, because I mean, it looks like United are going all out for Sancho. So reports that they've signed sort of personal terms. They're trying to work out a fee. It looks pretty likely they'll get him in there. They're pretty in desperate need of a right winger anyway. I mean, you've got a new manager coming into Spurs, so I wonder who that's going to be. It doesn't look like it's going to be Poch anymore. Could be Conte. I mean, Conte at Spurs would be a pretty big, pretty big draw for them. And I think they need to go for that kind of big name manager. And not go for. I was worried about losing Graham Potter, the Brighton manager, but I think he's probably safe now as they look for a kind of a more of a figure. So yeah, I agree. I mean, it's City really, isn't it? I mean, City. It depends if they really target Haaland. It depends if they can put together a package for Spurs, which might involve getting rid of some deadwood. I mean, did you see that report? It's like 70 million plus Ake and Jesus. And
really?
Surely Spurs wouldn't accept that. It's going to be Levy wanting big money, I think.
Do you know what as well though? I don't think it really fits Man City's style of buying either. Like you think what's their most they've spent on anybody? I think Diaz was their most expensive one, for 50-60 million, and you think, I don't know whether buying Harry Kane is good business. How many years are they going to get out of him?
Well, Haaland to me is better business, right? If
you're at it from exactly. That's what I mean. And you look at someone like Haaland and think he's going to be your striker for the next decade.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at someone like Harry Kane and think there's going to be no sell-on value if he falls out and he doesn't want to play anymore or something like that, which I know isn't really in Kane's character, but I just think it's bad business. 150 million. I honestly think Daniel Levy's going to price him out and he'll stay.
So bringing this back to the Euros quickly.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's my my topic. I just didn't know your thoughts. Yeah, it's really interesting because you're one of the first people I've spoken to who seems quite convinced that he's going to stay. But in terms of Harry Kane at the Euros, do you think, you often see these players kind of playing for a move. Do you think he will be playing for a move? Do you think that will make any difference to his performances at all? Do you think that if he did win the Golden Boot again, that could add another 30 million onto his price tag, and that could be, that could be a reason, How much thought do you reckon is going through Harry Kane's mind about after the Euros? Basically, is my question.
I don't think much, to be honest. I think he's probably. I think as much as possible when you turn up for England, you're trying to just think about what's happening in England, and I think one thing that's always hurt us in tournaments is the fact that they're thinking too much about club level and rivalries and all that kind of stuff. And I actually think that he's just thinking about England. He's so much about personal accolades, though. I think he wants to get Golden Boot again. He wants to be scoring goals. And I don't think his motivation will be, if I play well, then I'll be more likely to leave. Because actually, if they're putting 30 million more under his price tag, he's probably less likely.
Well, yeah, that's kind of
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think he's just all about the personal accolades. He's going to be wanting to score as many goals as possible. And when you look at this England team, who would you bet £10? Who would you bet £10 on that they're going to score 2-3 goals in this tournament? It's going to be Harry Kane, isn't it? So it's just whether you can. It's just looking at his price, isn't it? For his price, are you going to get him in? And I think, if I were to look elsewhere apart from Kane, the person I think's got the most upside is probably Phil Foden, personally.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that the key thing with Kane is you and I are maybe talking about not starting with him, but I'm assuming you've got plans to get him in for those other 2 games, like almost straight away. So if you are looking at that ownership and you're just thinking, 44%, maybe I can get someone else to kind of cover those points. I think there's 2 players in this tournament which are as close to essential as can be, and that's Lukaku and Kane, given the quality of the teams in their groups. So I think, okay, if you go without Kane for that first game, if you think that Croatia game is going to be tough, and maybe you're not planning to use the limitless chip in 2, or not playing a wild card, or whatever your strategy is, I just think you need to have in place a way to get Kane into those second 2 group games.
Well, go on then, because I know my answer to this. If you got asked straight away, you could only own one of them in a tournament, who would you own, Lukaku or Kane? Who would you be on?
I think for this tournament, I'd be on Lukaku.
Yeah, I would as well.
Yeah, I think
he's 2 million less.
Yeah, I think Lukaku is he's just got everything going for him to win the Golden Boot in this tournament. He's got incredible club form. He's got an easy group, an easy on paper group to look at. I just think Kane will rival him. I think the only drawback with Lukaku is obviously De Bruyne's injury and will he start and all that kind of stuff. But it's not like England have got a De Bruyne. We haven't got that, massively creative architect in the middle of the pitch making everything happen. And Kane still does well. Spurs don't have that architect either, and Kane still does well. I can't see any reason why Lukaku can't really push on. He's my tip for the Golden Boot, Lukaku.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so final player is Andy Robertson for Scotland. I think he's the main kind of one to target. Like I said, I think there are other options in the squad, but it's Robertson for me. 5.5, I still think is too much for a defender where we're not expecting any clean sheets at all. But I mean, him and Trent didn't exactly have the best seasons. I mean, 38 appearances, 1 goal, 7 assists. They've kind of put themselves up into this bracket, haven't they, where we just expect kind of double-digit returns and 200 points in FPL kind of every season. And, I think they've got around 170 points this year, which isn't a bad return by any stretch for a defender, but it's just not like kind of what we've seen. But like you said, did have a really strong end to the season.
Yeah, it did. And I like this pick. I think if I was picking somebody from Scotland, it would be Robertson or it would be McGinn. I think they're the only two I'd probably look at. But yeah, I think Robertson showed last night he can get an assist even when they're not keeping clean sheets. It's just for 5.5 million when you're not expecting any clean sheets in this group, is he definitely going to be getting you an attack in return? And for 5.5 million, like I said, for teams that I'm not expecting to get that many clean sheets, you really wanted to be spending 4.5 million on them and reinvesting that 1 million elsewhere. So yeah, it's a tough buy for me. I think I'd rather go for someone like McGinn personally.
Yep. That's great, Andy. I pressed the wrong button there. A little intro came in. Sort of really know what I'm doing with this, but it's fine. No, it's great. Thanks for joining me again. It's great having you on board with the Pro Pundit stuff, and we'll definitely be doing more videos as we go. Hoping to get you on next week for a team reveal if you're up for it. Put you on the spot now.
Lovely stuff. Definitely, mate.
And we can talk through our teams and where we're at. But yeah, for now, that's it.